the new way of thinking about ChatGPT is that it's moving in a position to become the new distribution platform on the internet.
It is extremely liberating once you start playing around with it, just because of how powerful the technology is.
The market just wants to do where is my order and all that kind of like practical use case driven stuff on one channel or whatever, you know?
I think for me, there's so much other platformy stuff that you can do with the tech that you will end up with way, way more value, new things that we can't even think about.
It's always been very clear to me that the value that AI provides is not on the surface level stuff like the question answering and stuff like that. It's in the doing of the work.
It's like AI technology that really unlocks the true potential of a person.
I hadn't thought about that from an economic standpoint, which is if it does just replace people, then it's not growth. The following is a conversation with Joe Kim, who is the CEO at DRUID AI. DRUID AI is a very interesting company. It started life essentially as a conversational AI platform that had the positioning of workflow automation. And it transpires that today, that's what everyone wants to do using AI and agentic AI is automate workflows in a way that provides a great experience for customers and for staff. And so this conversation is all about the market as it currently is. What are DRUID's customers seeing? What challenges are they facing? What value are they unlocking? Joe's new into the role. He's been there for 70 days now or so. And so it's really interesting to get some new, fresh perspectives in this market as Joe's just coming into DRUID and just into the AI space full time. I mean, he's got a lot of experience with AI, don't get me wrong, but I mean, now that he is at the helm of an AI company that does nothing else but AI, it's really interesting to get his kind of initial objective view on the market, where it is, where DRUID is, and how it's all kind of unfolding. We also discuss, towards the back end of the conversation, the new emerging demands or opportunities or challenges that companies like OpenAI, etc., are placing on companies like DRUID and on DRUID's customers. This whole notion of having your own ambient assistant that does things on your behalf. What impact will that have on businesses? How do you arrange your services and your website and your mobile apps when you've got a company like ChatGPT trying to use that stuff to get stuff done? What impact does that then have on your AI providers if you're building AI capabilities and end-to-end automated AI agents on your website and in your mobile apps, and you've got ChatGPT and other instances like that coming in trying to get stuff done as well? Where does the integration between those two things happen? And so it's a good conversation about where this kind of stuff is going, what the impact might be for your business. So without further ado, this is Joe Kim, CEO of DRUID AI on VUX World. Joe, thank you for joining me. Welcome to VUX World.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to speak with you. So
likewise, yeah, it's a pleasure. I've known DRUID for a long time. Spoke to DRUID a number of times. Understand generally the platform, but you've been there literally for how long so far?
It's been 70 whole days since I've been here now.
70 whole days. Well, congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
On the new position. 70 days is, well, on the one hand, in terms of starting a new position at a new company is not a long time. But in terms of in the AI landscape and in the AI world and AI market and all that kind of stuff, 70 days can sometimes feel like a lifetime. So how are you getting on?
It's been great so far. And actually, kind of your statement is precisely why I decided to come in and take the role here at DRUID, is partially because the previous company that I was running, which is a great company, Sumo Logic, as I was running it, I can see what's happening in the AI space, and it's like super interesting, but it's moving so fast that if you're not working on it full time, like it's just going to pass you by, right? Completely. And so it's been great to see in terms of how fast things have been moving. But I've learned quite a bit, and the industry has actually moved a lot in the last 70 days as well. So it's been good to see. That's
good. So what attracted you to DRUID then?
Well, what I originally attracted me to DRUID is, kind of like two portions. Kane, when I think about, a company to lead or a company to be a part of, there's usually two things that I look at. One of them is certainly the market and the market dynamics on what's going on. And in reality, as you're leading a company, it's one of those things that is incredibly hard to change if you can change it at all, right? And so I was looking for a part of the market where there's natural tailwinds that are happening, a lot of disruption that is happening, and certainly what's happening in generative AI and agentic AI space is that there's a lot of change, a lot of buzz, a lot of energy around it. So that was kind of point number one. And then the second piece is, when you're looking at a company, you're always looking for something that's going to have a good moat, some differentiation. Particularly in technology is usually the best place to have a moat. And so when I was looking at the tech and the platform and sort of the capabilities that the company was delivering to its end customers, ultimately it was the technology capability that had the best moat. It had the most amount of differentiation. And so ultimately with those two things really kind of meeting head to head, it was like a no-brainer for me to jump in and get involved.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that's interesting about DRUID is that, let's say in 2020, 2021, whatever it is, and for me, being involved in this space for a while, it's always been very clear to me that the value that AI provides is not on the surface level stuff like the question answering and stuff like that. It's in the doing of the work, which is the automating of processes for businesses and workflows and things like that. And for me, it's always been very obvious. But I don't necessarily think, and this is the value of hindsight in a sense, is that it's taken me to now for me to realize that the rest of the world didn't always necessarily see AI that way. But DRUID's positioning in the AI space has always been about workflow automation, to the point where when I first come across DRUID, I was a little bit like, I thought that DRUID's marketing was just stating the obvious, and I couldn't really understand how it was a differentiator. But I totally see it now, because the rest of the market, until recently, has not viewed AI as something that does stuff. It's only ever viewed it as something that answers questions. So I think DRUID was almost, I suppose, a little bit ahead of its time in terms of its market positioning and stuff like that.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you. Sometimes I wonder if that positioning is accidental or if it's purposeful. Because sometimes when you are working with customers and they tell you exactly what their needs are, a lot of times you're kind of parroting that and trying to fix those problems for customers. And the reality is it's a little bit of luck and a little bit of purposefulness is, all mixed in, usually when you're on the right path. But you're 100% correct. And today, even because there's a lot of people that have spent time on, not maybe, the automation or the agentic AI space, much more on the, what I would consider the generative AI space, like generating answers, generating videos, generating images, where people are now trying to make distinctions between those two things now in the market, right?
Yeah.
And so I think more and more you'll see clarity there, like what's the difference of Gen AI per se, just responding to a question, where maybe, accuracy doesn't need to be at 100%. A lot of times people, when they're getting that answer or some video that it generated, they can, basically make decisions for themselves. Is this good enough or is this not good enough? But as soon as, like you said, you get into business process or what we would consider agentic AI capabilities, where the agent itself is making decisions and taking action, you need the technology to be much, much more accurate than what you can just get out of LLMs.
Yeah. So I suppose the pedigree of DRUID there then is what is coming to fruition, presumably.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, interesting. What was it, the company that you were at previously, did you say?
It was Sumo Logic.
Sumo Logic.
It was a public company that was taken private about 2.5 years ago in the security and observability space.
Okay, fair enough. So is there some parallels, would you say then? Because observability is a big factor in terms of AI at the moment.
There is. And again, it was, I would say in that role, I was kind of doing some of the AI stuff in the edges, very specific to those specific use cases. But again, it's if you want to get involved in AI, there's no better way than just jumping 2 feet, in and trying to talk to as many customers as possible, and don't just have one slice of the pie when you're looking at use cases and value.
Yeah, I think you're in a very kind of good position, which is, as somebody, it's always nice when somebody new joins the company because they don't come with the history and the culture and the baggage of the company, and they can genuinely have a totally objective perspective on things. So and that's good for anybody at any level, I think. But when you have a new CEO, your lens on things and what you're looking for and what you're observing is it's different in terms of the perspective, isn't it? Because you're if someone's joining in even at the sort of like director level or senior management level, their concerns are not going to be the same as yours. So, and exactly. I don't mean to sort of ask in terms of Druid specifically, but being in the role for 70 days, what is it that you've sort of learnt so far, either in terms of the market or in terms of how Druid's positioned in the market or that kind of stuff? Like, what's been your initial learnings in the last sort of 2 months or so?
I think, my biggest thing again coming in was what is the market like, and then what is the moat for the company, right? And around the platform and the platform capabilities. I would say the biggest takeaway that I've had so far, because I don't know to what depth the moat goes, as an example, is just how good the technology is ultimately. Because again, before joining, you do all of your testing and, you maybe play around with the tech yourself, but you don't really get to understand it until you get like underneath the covers and see how things are being done. And it is actually way more, I would say, impressive in terms of, what the team has done than what I had first imagined. And actually, I usually do these things called jam sessions with the product team. It is not like a band getting together and jamming together. That has a very positive connotation to it. Usually I call it a jam session because I take one day, I'm like, product people, jam as much information as you can in one day is why I usually call it a jam session. And I was looking at it, and during one of the breaks, I told the product team, it's just like, I was just shaking my head going like, man, I am so sad that more people don't understand what is happening underneath the covers here. Because it is really literally that impressive. So I'll give you an example in terms of the technology. Let's say you create a bot, Kane, and like where, I don't know, it's like a customer support bot or something like that. Okay. Mm-hmm. When you come in on a Druid platform on that bot, and Kane, you log into a website and you're wanting to ask some question. As you log in and you ask your first question, very often what you'll find in the platform, and we don't expose it to the end user, is like there's 55 different sub processes and micro agents and microservices running in the background, even before it answers your first question. Mm. And it's doing that real time. It's going, well, what is Kane's background? What was the last thing that he asked when he was in here? What are typical people like Kane asking? Do we do something internally where Kane might be reaching out to us? What is the next question that Kane may ask? So all of this stuff is actually being calculated in the background, even before the first response goes out. And so think about trying to do that real time, and then you're adding on top of there, let's say, I don't know, maybe you're doing voice. So you have to do like voice to text and text to voice and all of these specific translations. And all of that is being done pretty near real time. And so it's super impressive in terms of the tech. I mean, that's my biggest takeaway walking away from it. I guess on the not so, shiny, bright side, I would say is I have this rule usually when you're running a software company, it's okay for you to create what I consider a God box, which is a box that does everything. It can do millions of use cases. It's great that you can build that, which is what we have at Druid. It is incredibly difficult to sell a God box. Mm. You can't go in and say, hey, Kane, we have this thing that does everything. What is your problem that we can solve? Right? Yeah. You want to meet the customers where they're having a specific problem now, or they're looking for a need right now, and then make sure that as much as possible, we retrofit the technology so that we can fulfill that value that you're looking for as quickly as possible. So there's a lot of kind of work and adjustment that we'll do as we move forward with utilizing the Druid technology for customers.
That's a good observation. I mean, I think there is value. It's going back to, I suppose, what my reflection of earlier on, which was that when I said that Druid's positioning as a kind of like workflow automation AI platform was ahead of its time, and I didn't appreciate that the market wasn't at that level of maturity yet. Maybe it's the same sort of thing here, whereas I see very clearly the value of that God box. Because as an enterprise, that's kind of what I should need, is that horizontal AI layer in which all of my business systems, all of my knowledge, all of my workflows can be absorbed into, and then the customer interaction happens on the top. And so that God box becomes the center of all my business activity. So
Yeah.
I see that very clearly and the need for that very clearly. But again, the problem is I don't think the market is at that point. The
No.
market just wants to do where is my order and all that kind of like practical use case driven stuff on one channel or whatever, you know?
Yeah, it's super surprising, especially when you're involved in it and you're talking to so many people in the market. But I do find like education to be a huge part of, something that we got to let, customers kind of come to us with, at some point. I mean, I can even look at, looking at a report from like last year in AWS reInvent. There was a study done by McKinsey. Okay, very, very big firm. Came out, and one of the super interesting data points that they shared around agentic AI was that actually less than 5% of folks really understood or utilized agentic AI platforms or capabilities. And that's not like, that's about a year ago, right? Like it's maybe 11 months ago where that report was the case. And so there's still a kind of a nascent, part to, especially this part of the market around the automation, not just using it for just a response or generating content for actually doing activities. It's now starting to really come to the fore right now. I mean, but it's loud enough. The need is loud enough. I would say at this point, like literally every single person has an agentic AI solution now. It's I laugh about it with Andrea, who's one of the co-founders. She's my chief operating officer, where, we're not talking about like AI washing anymore. We feel like a lot of times we're going into each customer and we're helping to do the AI laundry. We're like we're sifting through all of the tech to really, even more in detail than what they already have, understand, what are the capabilities for them to be able to get value out of this tech.
Yeah. That makes sense. What's your reflection of, as before we started recording, you were talking about you've been spending a lot of time talking to customers and stuff like that. What's your initial assessment of the market in terms of like, what are the market conditions out there? Is it super competitive? Are the customers mature in their adoption and their thinking and their strategy? Like, how would you describe the marketplace at the moment?
I think certainly the market is super competitive right now. Super competitive. There is my board members, probably at this point every day send me a new company that has started that's in a similar space. Obviously we've been building this technology for over 7.5 years. It's going on 8, so it's going to be a little bit of time before those new tech software companies can catch up to what we have. But it's getting more and more crowded. And it just has a lot to do with where the market dynamics are, which is this stuff is just incredibly hot, at the moment. In terms of sort of, where the customers are at, I would say it is very different from industry to industry, because there's a lot of learnings that are still going on. And so, even if I can look at any of the reports, but even if I look at the same McKinsey report, from last year, like about 40% of the market is actually in the customer experience, customer support space. So in this giant swath of market, there's a very specific niche area that, people are going after. The second biggest area being in doing like engineering related stuff, R&D related stuff around code generation and something like that. That's only still 30% of the market per that study. And so predominantly, there's these big, giant swaths of stuff where people are competing. And there are other areas where people are, just still learning and, where do they implement it? There's a lot of just like that brainstorming still going on. So it really does differ by vertical.
What kind of like, what industries would you say are on the more mature end versus on the less mature end?
I would say a lot of areas where it's more related to that customer experience, customer support side. So if I look at any retail shop that is out there, they're going to be using a ton of chatbots and agentic AI technologies in the background. They're starting to play around with it. A lot of our customers are on this side, and anyone that's tangential to that part of the market, let's say in finance, they have to interact with customers. In the insurance industry, they would have to interact with customers. Think about how you schedule appointments even at a hospital or with a doctor. That is all being done now through things like chatbots. A lot of cases when we have this stuff deployed, it's been super interesting because a lot of cases they don't even know that they're talking to a bot in the background because the technologies have come so far now. And the second kind of realization on some of these that's super interesting is, and you wouldn't think this way, but for a lot of folks that typically don't like to talk to people, they don't mind talking to a bot.
Mm.
And it's because a lot of the questions that they may have, there is a sense of, another person talking to, maybe they're judging around the questions that you're asking. These are dumb questions or whatever the case is. A lot of that stuff actually goes away once they realize that they're talking to a bot, and they're much actually friendlier in those discussions. And so we've naturally seen things like NPSs spike anywhere from 15 points or above from where they were from a bot versus a person. So there are some like very tangible positive areas, especially when it's actually touching in customers.
Interesting. So clarify that for me then. Did I understand that right there? You're saying that you're seeing 50 up to 15-point jump in satisfaction for
Yes.
the AI as opposed
Yes.
to the human.
People. Yeah, opposed to people.
Wow.
It is like, it's so counterintuitive, like, as you would think, but that's what we're seeing in our data.
Yeah. I suppose there's lots of industries where that AI interaction is preferable, isn't it? Like, it's not just like, oh, is this a stupid question, but it's also the judgmental side of things, as you said, like debt collection, credit and collections, those type of use cases are really good because I don't really want to talk to somebody who's going to judge me because I didn't pay my council tax on time or whatever it might be,
Yeah. I'll even give you like a personal thing is like, I used to get these questions from my elderly parents. They're in their 80s now. Okay. And every time they ping me about something or call me, I'm like, man, you just go to Google and you look it up and you can find an answer. Okay. And they would not do it. They would not Google it if their life depended on it. And recently I stopped getting calls from them because they're using ChatGPT to handle a lot of that. And it's so much more interesting that they're okay using that technology, but from a Google perspective, they were still completely lost. And so again, it's almost counterintuitive, I would say, but it's that's how the data is working out. So
it's mad, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
I used to say like a couple of years ago, kind of when I was giving talks or whatever, that when something has hit mainstream when your parents are texting you about it. And literally, I remember the day when my mum texted me about, first of all, she texted me about, there was this story on one of the evening news channels about this AI that's going to take over and take everyone's jobs and all that lot. And so she and this was in like 2023 or something like that. So like ChatGPT had been out a while, but it's still making the news and that. Excuse me. And my mum texted me and said, are you watching Newsnight? And it was like 10 o'clock at night. I got two kids. I was in bed. I was like, no, I'm not watching Newsnight. She said, oh, they're talking about this AI that's going to take over everyone's jobs and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, is it ChatGPT? And she said, oh, what, you've heard of it? I was like, I've heard of it, Mum. This is what I do.
it's what I do.
It's all I talk about whenever we see each other. And then like months later, she's texting me about ChatGPT and like what she's trying and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, it just hits a new level of adoption when it breaks out of that innovator, early adopter phase and people's, everyone's using it. So now it's at least at the top of everyone's mind now, this whole AI thing,
Yeah, for sure. And everyone's got their own version of it. Some use ChatGPT. Other people, they like Grok better for one reason or another. But it's been super interesting to see. Like even a lot of kids, right? If they're doing a book report and they like ask questions on ChatGPT, maybe not generating, but like, hey, give me a summary of this chapter or whatever the case might be. So it's been super interesting to see. A lot of times I tell like enterprises that too, is like, hey, look, people at home are using it. You're crazy to think that no one at work is going to be using it if you don't talk about it, right?
Yeah.
And so, again, it's a good way to start the discussion. I actually found that kind of those two brackets are folks that are learning about it, pretty readily at the moment. It's that middle bracket, I would say, when people that are working on their day-to-day jobs today, that where I like to push a little bit harder is like, hey, look, I'm not worried about your kids. They're going to grow up with this stuff. They're going to find ways to add value. I'm not really worried about the elderly folks, but if you're in a job right now, my biggest push is like, don't be scared of it, go learn it. And if you do, what you're going to find is like, it's actually super exciting stuff. Like it makes you even more productive and better. You just need to take a little bit of step to just start kicking the tires on it.
Yeah, and that's the same with the kind of enterprise customer facing stuff as well, isn't it? Like all the time when you deploy something, the purpose of that thing is to help the people that work in the business to manage customers better, to be more productive, to deal with the influx of contact that you can't solve for because you're too busy solving contact type of thing. And most of the time when you do deploy it, often it is received very positively by staff who now can actually answer all the calls that they receive because half of them are being answered by this automated type of solution. So I think that it's embracing it is one of those things that different people will take it in different ways, but ultimately, if it's not going to go anywhere.
No, it's only gonna proliferate more. If anything else, and even like in that case, like as people tiptoe, like let's use the kind of customer support bot situation as an example. Okay, like again, if you're able to use the technology on one end to be able to help answer a lot of those questions, when things get escalated to a person, the same kind of bot or agent technology can also help you there as well. Like as it's listening in or taking in context, real time. And we have this like on our dashboards. On the internal side, if you're taking a real call, the ability for the agent to go, well, here's how you would answer this question. Here's sort of what the tonality looks like, et cetera. And so it's a tremendous amount of help, not only for the company, but even if that escalation does go to a person, there's a lot of capabilities that it can pull from to make sure that that call goes well.
Absolutely. How have you kind of experienced from the customers that you've been speaking with? What's their kind of like enthusiasm, willingness, and or risk aversion to adopting generative AI? Because there's obviously a lot of stuff going on in the news, etc., and where people consume their media from, etc., around kind of like the hallucination factor and these things aren't accurate. At the same time, you've got some companies that are, it's less of a concern because the use cases maybe are not that high risk, but other companies like banks and stuff like that, they've got a lot higher risk tolerance. So how are you seeing the level of risk tolerance for generative AI among your customers?
I would say there's kind of a pressure there that most folks won't talk about openly. But if you think about when GPT-3 first came out, right, and everyone's like, we got to do something in AI, that pressure literally comes from the board level down, right, to the CEOs, to everyone else on staff. And so a lot of times, because of that pressure, people are looking to do something in the space, be it for efficiency purposes or additional ROI or new product introduction or whatever the case might be. So that still does occur, like in the background, certainly less so than when GPT-3 was around. We're now in 5 and there's open source versions of it. Like, we've come quite a bit ways from there. But I got to say that still certainly exists. The second piece is as people are testing this stuff out, usually on their own first. Kane, remember that study that said less than 5% are really using or understanding agentic AI technologies above the generative AI stuff? Like, what are the tools and capabilities that I need? A lot of them are going out there and unfortunately, and this is my heartache right now, not even for Druid, just from a customer point of view, is like a lot of those projects are failing because of the exact same stuff that you're talking about. It's like there's not enough control. How am I supposed to get this deployed in an enterprise if I can't get it compliant to whatever the compliance might be, HIPAA or GDPR or whatever the case is. And usually when we talk to them, it's almost like an incredibly easy sell because they failed at trying to do this thing on their own for such a long time. But as soon as you get a platform around, hey, look, I have control over what I can do, right? Now I can log everything that is happening in my environment in terms of how the decisions are being made so that I can be compliant, I can be more secure. And because I have those same kind of steps for me to be able to drive accuracy levels up into the mid 90s and the high 90s, as soon as they understand that there are platforms out there, and Druid is certainly one of them that can help them do that, then a lot of the fears end up going away. So think about the example that I used before of, hey, Kane logs in and before the first answer, there's these 55 microservices and micro agents and subroutines that are happening in the background. We don't expose that to the end user necessarily, okay? Because we want the implementation to be easy. But if a customer wanted to go in there and kind of modify any one of those things to, again, drive accuracy or control up, you can certainly go do that. Everything is now going to be logged in terms of how the responses come back. And so if they have that level of control, usually the enterprises are, pretty good with it. I mean, we have government agencies, we have higher ed, like et cetera, that have more compliance, or even healthcare, right, for that matter, that are utilizing our technologies today because we do give them that final lever, the grain that you need for you to be able to control each and every kind of step.
That's good. That's important. And
Yes.
when I was talking earlier about kind of Druid's history in terms of that workflow automation, you have, this concept, I'm sure you come across this concept of agent washing, which is kind of like everything is just splattered with the agent terminology because it's cool and that's what's kind of like
Yes.
current.
Yes. Yes.
So where does Druid sit? Maybe it's a bit too early for you to answer this question. Tell me if it is, but where does Druid and where do you sit on the difference or the similarities or differences between what is a traditional workflow automation versus what is an AI agent?
Yeah, it's I don't know how technical you want me to get here, Kane,
No,
but
just
I
however it comes
I
natural.
can flex my muscles here. What I'll tell you is it's actually, and this is the half accidental, half purposeful, piece of what we have, is we're very mature from that perspective. We're very mature, and it's because of sort of what we were born with originally was around this kind of concept of automated workflow right at the beginning. And on top of that, we started to, kind of bolt in what's happening with, agent technology. And the way that we saw that pretty early on was instead of a big agent, we should be looking at how this stuff works from what I would consider like micro agents, these agents that are doing tiny little steps on their own. And so, and again, once you start going down this road with existing data sets and existing services plus these micro agents, is that eventually you end up needing an orchestration layer, okay, to be able to orchestrate all the things together so that you can create a bigger agent or, kind of a master agent or a bot in our language, okay? And so that has been there since like 7 years ago. Like we've been building this stuff out for a very long time. And that's precisely what the, one of the capabilities we have, something called Druid Conductor does. Okay. It's sort of like orchestration plus, 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 if you will. So it'll orchestrate sort of the traditional stuff around business process, just like any other orchestration engine. It will actually orchestrate those things against agents that you create internally within the Druid platform. And here's kind of the plus, plus, plus side is then it will also orchestrate agents that are not Druid agents. Okay. And so if you have the capabilities, it doesn't matter if you create it all in one house. We certainly would love customers to do that. I don't know how realistic that is. Or if you have other agent technology that you're going to be using and you're using our stuff and you're using more traditional integrations that might be out there, you can actually now orchestrate all of those components together in the conductor. And, I'm making it sound much easier than what is implemented in the background. Obviously, there's lots of technologies that are in the background. What LLMs are you using? Can I swap things in and out? How easily can I make changes, et cetera? And this is where I think from a business process and automation perspective, the agent stuff really helps. Because previously, without the agent technology, you had to map and orchestrate that by hand. Right? Like step 1 goes to step 2, maybe goes to 3, maybe goes to 3B, type of thing, and you would map it out. Every single time you would make a change to a business process or an underlying system in that model, you end up having to rebuild the entire workflow when you do that. So it becomes fairly, it's valuable, but it becomes expensive for you to continue to upkeep, especially if your enterprise is moving fast, like different pieces are changing. Some pieces may be under your control. Some pieces may be under somebody else's control in another department, maybe even a cloud vendor. And this is where, like, if you give that kind of ability to map that context, starting with an agentic technology, it will start to figure stuff out on its own. And then you can do the checks afterwards to see if these things are correct. And so the upkeep actually gets, not only do you get more power by using the technology, but the upkeep actually gets much, much more efficient with the introduction of techniques like agentic AI. And so That's what we ultimately see. It's already available and it's been available for a while in the platform. And I do, encourage customers to go check it out and kick the tires on it. We're, super proud of it.
Nice. And what do you think at the moment the kind of, I suppose, biggest challenges are amongst either your customers or the wider market? Like, AI, the AI landscape for customers, your customers and prospects in there, what are their biggest challenges?
I think I would bucket it into like two things right now. I think bucket number one is sort of what you and I talked about, which is all around like education. Like there's a whole set of I don't know how you found obviously when you're having these conversations, you're talking with quite a few experts, so it feels very far along. But in reality, a lot of people are still learning about it. They use it maybe personally, but in terms of implementation in an enterprise environment, they're just starting to learn that now. And again, if you look at the MIT report that just came out in August, where it's like 95% of these projects end up not delivering ROI or they end up failing, they're still kicking the tires. That's sort of where folks are. So I think there's an education portion that's gonna need a where we need to close the gap, and that's going to happen. The market is too big, too many people are using it, and the fact that the failure rate is so high means that they are trying a lot of stuff, right? Certainly, and so that will catch up. The second piece is like just really understanding ultimately it's about delivering value and what is the use case and what are you trying to do as a organization or a company or a group, right? And so just looking at it going like not to try to retrofit every single AI technology to everything that you're working on, but like, hey, look, I'm trying to deliver this need. Is AI the best thing for me to utilize to deliver that need? I think that needs to be maybe thought through a little bit more, from a customer point of view, because there's just so much excitement around it. People want to use it everywhere. It might not be necessarily something that you can use in every single use case, right? And so I would say, those are the two primary factors.
Yeah, I think that's what contributes to some of those high failure rates is that people are not selecting the right use cases. They're throwing technology at things for the sake of trying to get generative AI working rather than trying to solve a problem. And those two things, I think, like, it sounds a bit. Again, it sounds obvious.
It sounds basic.
Yeah, it does.
It sounds basic.
But it's surprising how many miss it out. And maybe it's something to do with where these opportunities originate from. Maybe it's just people, kicking the tires of some technology and they build something and all of a sudden it's like, hey, should we try this? Or I don't know if it's where the ideas originate from. It's more, I would sort of see it as some of them seem to me at least to be a little bit like grassroots led. Oh, we could use it for this, we could use it for that, rather than strategic in terms of like, where's our pain point and how do we go and solve that problem?
Yeah, I agree. And again, I think it just has a lot to do with the power of the tech and the excitement around it. Right?
Yeah.
Like the last kind of go around that I would almost look at, again, it may or may not be the right comparison. A lot of people compare it to like the internet and .com and things like that when it comes to this. And the opportunity is likely that big, right, with AI. But you could even see it as recently as when people are talking about like microservices and service-oriented architecture, right? It's like, oh yeah, everything needs to be microservices and everything needs to be SOA. It's like, no, not everything needs to be SOA. Like it's amazing and you should use it, certainly. But if you're predominantly working on mainframe systems and things like that, and you're perfectly happy without a new business reason, this isn't something that you should be looking at, as an example, right? And so I see similar things happening now, and again, as similar to that, or maybe even the internet and the .com and everything else is, with all of the buzz and everything else, I still do see on the other end of this just incredible amount of value that ends up getting created on the other end. And so I'm just, super happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. Like the potential value is absolutely huge.
It's gigantic. It's gigantic.
Yeah. Do you think it is of the scale of the internet? Bigger, less so? Like what? Because that's often is the thing that gets compared to, isn't it? The internet is infrastructure. AI potentially is infrastructure. Maybe it's at the interface layer, but also behind the scenes. So, yeah, do you think AI can be as big as the internet in general?
It could be. And I would say, because a lot of what's happening right now, if you think about it, is getting applications and things like that, except the current ones, like it's getting either replaced or augmented with things like chat and agentic stuff, right? It's mostly the interface of something like ChatGPT or Grok or Druid for that matter. Or and then stuff that's happening in the background where you're kicking off agents to go do something for you. Like it's the combination of those two things. I think over time, there will be other, and I can't, confidently say these are the constructs of what they will look like. But I think there's going to be other constructs of what the next generation of business applications look like. That's what I think will end up coming up. Just like originally when people were looking at the internet, it's like you didn't think every single storefront was going to be online. Like that was not something that it was planned to do, right? And so very, very same-ish, I think for me. There's so much other platforming stuff that you can do with the tech that you will end up with way, way more value, new things that we can't even think about, currently today. I'll give you a super interesting, like just anecdote that I had with somebody that's helping to put a project together, not even for us. It's just where agent technology is going at hospitals here locally. Okay. Is people are now looking at all the doorways for how a hospital is structured, thinking about how robots are going to pass in and out of it. Right? Like
Wow.
it's like the doors aren't big enough. The bot's going to be this tall and it's going to be this wide, and it needs to be able to move freely around with patients and all that stuff. So in new hospitals, as they're constructing them, they're thinking about these things.
Wow.
What do the elevator need to look like, and like how can you make it easy for these bots to go in and out and do the things that they're going to do with, again, AI being a lot of the backbone of how they're going to be functioning. And so and that's happening like right now. This isn't even, that's how they're thinking about it right now. It's not even like super future out. So I do think there's going to be other constructs that certainly do come out from the technology that we're a part of today.
Yeah, 100%. That's crazy how they're specking new builds on the basis of having robots.
I was shocked when I was hearing about it. I was like, I won't even be thinking about that.
No,
But
that is
yeah,
mad. I think one of the interesting things that's going on at the moment, just beginning to kind of like get going, I suppose, is that, I remember in 2017 when I was, madly evangelical about Amazon Alexa. And it was like, as soon as I saw the Alexa device, for me, again, it was just obvious that this is the way to go. This is the future. This is going to be the operating system of our lives. Like phones are going to disappear, computers are going to disappear, everything's going to be voice enabled. Obviously, it didn't get to that point as fast as I thought it would because I think the underlying technology wasn't quite ready. But
yeah,
but what it was having the potential to be was essentially a new distribution platform, which was that if you listen to the radio, now it's all coming through Alexa. If you play games, now a good proportion of your gaming time is spent on Alexa. If you listen to music, then a good proportion of it's coming through Alexa. So it had the potential to be this new distribution platform. It didn't quite get there, although it's not completely over because it's still, adoption's still rising. But with something like ChatGPT, the adoption of ChatGPT far outpaces Amazon Alexa. The capabilities
oh
of the
yeah,
technology under the hood far outpace Alexa. The amount and different types of places that you can use it are far different and far greater, and therefore what you can do with it then is greater because it is on the screen, it is on the laptop, etc. So they're now the kind of like the more kind of like the new way of thinking about ChatGPT is that it's moving in a position to become the new distribution platform on the internet. And if you look at the apps SDK, you can then integrate apps into it, etc. And so the idea of everyone having their own personal AI that does all their jobs for them, it doesn't seem to be a million miles away. Is that something that you think about for Druid in terms of how do you get distributed through those platforms and help your clients get that distribution, or is it too early to think about that?
I think about it every day. And that means 70 days now, commute for me. It would be every day. But I do think about it quite a bit. And again, if you're in the space, I would say it's like a no-brainer thing, right? Like as people are doing search, for example, like how they're going to find you is no longer like I'm going to index everything and I'm going to pay for Google to have a link come up. I mean, certainly you should do some of that, but how far are you going down and clicking on links now when you're asking something of Google search? because Gemini is now, giving you like, all of the, almost all of the answers kind of in an AI summary for you. And then it's got links on there on the original articles on where those answers came from, right? And so a lot of those end up getting clicked. And so, I wouldn't be a good, kind of steward for the company if I wasn't thinking about, well, if you're not going to click on the link, then how do I get my answers on those specific responses that are coming out, right? Certainly. I think people are even going further than that now in terms of a distribution channel. So if you looked at, one of my buddies, Daniel Danker, he's the head of AI over at Walmart. Okay. He did a partnership with OpenAI where, how you can go to OpenAI, you can go to ChatGPT and say, hey, give me, I want to go camping, tell me what I need, if I'm going camping for 3 days with my 2 kids and my wife, right? And then it will give you, here's all the stuff that you need. They actually recently did a partnership where from there you can directly buy stuff at Walmart.
Wow.
Wow. Yes, it's a wow. Would you like to just order this from your account at Walmart? And so you can see it already starting to happen. Like people are taking that next steps to go have those partnerships and start, baking that capability in.
Yeah, and you could see loads of applications for that. Yeah, the whole plan me a trip thing. Would you like to reserve the hotel, the flights?
Yes,
that's the entry level for everything. All of the demos of like Google Assistant, Amazon Alexa, all that stuff. It's all taxis and pizza ordering and flights and accommodation. It's the entry level into practicality, isn't it? So I can see that happening pretty easily with some of that.
100%, 100%, and even for us. That's what we typically, find as well, Kane, is like, it's a matter of like getting that first value, but the technology is so powerful, it immediately ends up opening up all of these other possibilities for you to go, okay, where else can I use this, for me to get value out of the company. And so again, people might be looking for the big, kind of, bang kind of project, that may take 18 months to do. Again, the way that I push my team and also with customers, like just find a thing that you can get value. Like once you get it, once you get that going, not only do you understand the technology, but all of these other options are going to open up. And maybe, Kane, when you and I are talking about these use cases, we're like, man, these are no-brainer use cases, but it might not be for, that specific customer, depending on where in the journey that they are. And so, tons of exciting stuff going on right now.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that just crossed my mind there, which I've actually never thought about this before, but one potential future is that let's say that ChatGPT continues to do what it's doing, and it does become the next distribution platform. I don't think Google's going to go anywhere. That's going to stay there. But maybe
I think Google will certainly be around.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
they're pretty sizable.
Yeah. So, but at least you've got this other thing, right? And the way in which, so again, there's a parallel with Amazon Alexa here, because the challenge of Amazon Alexa was it couldn't get enough brands on the platform to make the platform sticky enough. So that Walmart example, it didn't integrate to a Walmart skill sufficiently enough so that you could start with an upstream use case of planning a trip and then end up in the place where you can buy the stuff you need. So it didn't quite connect those two dots together. ChatGPT might do that, but again, the apps SDK is reliant on your client hooking up their app into ChatGPT. Same way as you have to build an Alexa skill. I think OpenAI, what's different to Amazon Alexa is that OpenAI has realized that actually we also need to go downstream to be able to conduct actions on behalf of a user when the company doesn't use the apps SDK, which is the operator and the agents feature. So now OpenAI is going to be crawling your customer's website to try and do stuff. And it's that doing of stuff that Druid would be doing.
Yes. So this is a live discussion that I have right now. It's a live discussion. So without getting into super nitty gritty details, there are these like subgenres of systems that end up emerging, I would say. Okay. And I don't have better words to describe them. So you're going to have to, excuse the way that I have termed things. Okay. These things aren't necessarily existing terms. Okay. Mm-hmm. But I see kind of like minimally 3 different kind of systems that are emerging with what's happened with AI. One of them is something that I would call like things like system of ideas. Okay. And it is mostly Gen AI. It's like, hey, I want to, give me a picture of innovation, whatever that might be. And then it's going to generate something for me, a set of things for me. Okay. And some of them might be good, some of them might be bad, but there's a lot of this thing around generating things. There's a second piece on what I call like systems of experience. Okay. And systems of experience is sort of like the next level of business applications where not only can I make the transaction consistent for a company, but I can also, for the end user, make it super unique and personalized for you. So ultimately, Kane, you and I might go visit a website or one of these applications, and we are both going to be buying something, let's say on the site. And so that's the consistent portion of that transaction getting closed. But understanding what you are like and what I am like, it might personalize that so that it's a little bit easier for both of us to buy it in our own way, if that makes sense. So there's a set of these capabilities that are coming along, and then sort of what you talk about is like sort of the third bucket, and I don't know what to call it. Okay, and it is I've been calling it systems of action, much more closer to agentic AI stuff. You got all this information. It should be able to make decisions and take action for you. Okay. Now, I had somebody on the team also say, maybe it's not the action, maybe it's just the decision. Maybe it's a system of decision. Because the action might not be directly coming from you. It might be coming from all of these other distribution channels that you might have. And maybe we'll be kind of an action kind of on one side of the workflow. Maybe we're helping to make the decision up front, but you don't necessarily need to do the whole thing. Now, my personal take is ultimately, I don't know how you separate those two things. If you can make the decision, ultimately, the next course of action is to take the action, much like any other automation or orchestration system, to be frank. But internally, it's what you are saying is actually a live debate that we're having at the moment.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? I mean, it's like you said before that, things don't go away. Like Google won't go away. So I don't necessarily envisage a world where websites with chatbots and apps with chatbots go away. I think if anything, those things are going to become more prevalent. So it'll be the interface to the website and the interface to the app.
I 100% agree.
Yeah, maybe that's the conduit towards making the integration with these other systems easier. Because if OpenAI visits your website and all there is something to talk to, then talking to it to get the things that it needs to do, seemingly for me seems to be easier for it to do because it generates language. It's a big language generating machine. That's all it does. Easier than browsing a website, I don't know.
Yeah, and there is almost like because a lot of the learnings from LLMs are, you got to digitize the information for it to learn from it, right? And so in a really weird way, if that's sort of the construct that you move forward with, a lot of the non-digital things, because these are interactions, these aren't like Kane's information. It's like how Kane interacts with the system. Like in a really weird way, there's a lot of learnings that could come out of that to actually make the experience a little bit more smoother for you.
Yeah.
And so like it's super interesting to think about. But certainly you see the kind of the seeds kind of bubbling up to, little branches, and, you got some flowering happening here and there around, not only some of these partnerships, but, actualizing some of these capabilities. And so, it's super cool.
Nice. And what's then the plan for the next kind of, 6-12 months? I know maybe it's a bit early for you to say that, but I mean, you so far joining the company, what's the goals for the next 12 months for Druid? Where do you see Druid being in 12 months time?
Yeah, I think there's a few things for us. I think one is, certainly we're going to, from that moat that I talked about, being able to continue to drive accuracy up, take, hallucinations out of the system, give you enough control so that you can get compliance and security and regulatory stuff handled, as you're deploying things out into the enterprise. We're going to continue to push the boundaries on it. We'll get more accurate. We'll give you better control. We'll give you better speed. That will continue to happen in the background. So for sure, that's going to happen. The second piece is as folks are trying to contemplate what is the use cases where it's going to get best handled by this set of technology, we're going to shortchange that from a value proposition perspective faster for customers. And so at Symbiosis at UK, just in the end of October, and now we're going to do a Symbiosis event also in November. So hopefully people will see this already. But we launched a concept of marketplace. And all basically marketplaces is from the 9,000 different agents that we deploy for our customers today. What are sort of the most common ones that people tend to utilize by vertical? So here's the stuff for insurance. Here's the sort of stuff for, I know we have even thing for like automobile leasing companies, type of thing, so that they can actually do a quick search and be able to get agents that have worked for customers already and use that right out of the box. So we're going to continue to push the boundaries on things that are out of the box so that people don't have to wonder exactly where they're going to get ROI. So there's a lot of just speed to value. Another cool thing that we deployed as part of that theme is something called the authoring agent. And it basically is an agent to help you create other agents.
Nice.
Yeah. So instead of having to bring in all this professional services, again, it's at the beginning phase of where things are at right now. But you're going to now be able to go, I want to create an integration into, I don't know, let's pick Salesforce.com or something like that. I want this agent to integrate with Salesforce. It will actually model all the stuff in Salesforce for that agent. And you don't have to know anything about Salesforce for you to be able to, then start hooking stuff into Salesforce.com. And so, again, we're at the beginning phases that ultimately we want to be able to take that technology, Kane, to the degree where like a functional leader should be able to create their own agent. Like I'm a head of finance or I'm a head of HR. I want to create an HR agent or I want to create, some kind of bookkeeping thing. It will just create those things for you directly out of the box. It's sort of like directionally where we're going to be heading. And then the third piece is like, trying to contemplate ways for us to, give capabilities without you having to take entire chunks of time to integrate into our platform. And I'll give you an example is like our knowledge base is a super popular product that people utilize. So like you hook it into all of your documents and it will actually take all the context from the documents and be able to interact with a combination of knowledge articles, and we create the base and the knowledge graph and everything else for you. And it gets updated real time. So in the interactions, if we understand what customers are trying to actually get to and your answers are not quite the way that it's supposed to, you can actually have the bots and agents update your doc for you. Okay. But that's a lot of work. That's all of the knowledge that might be in your enterprise to be able to get that going. And so, we're the type of ideas that we're kicking around is like, how can we get it so that, I don't know, Kane, if you have one document that you want to do that with, like, could we do that for you? And we certainly can. We've done it for customers. But can we get that easier to digest so that if, I don't know, you wanted to take a look at these notes or whatever it is, and you want to ask questions on how popular would this interview be, and then it would automatically generate a score for you. Think about how many times we end up doing that. Sales with RFPs that come in. Could we win this or could we not win this? Just looking at projections for how the quarter is going to end for like a RevOps person. There's so many use cases where single docs could be even very, very powerful when you overlay our capabilities. It's just, again, just a very easy thing for you to be able to adopt and get value right away. And so there's a lot of kind of brainstorming around all of that. The piece that won't change, I would say, and this is my 70-day in promise, Kane, is that I think one of the big non-technical differentiators that Druid has, and it's the reason why customers have been so successful with deploying the technology, right? They're renewing and all of that, is partially because we just have a lot of dedication to customer success. And especially for companies that are much younger, that you tend to build that out way later in your cycle. One of the things that we're not going to run away from is to make sure that that is a part of the DNA that we continue to keep.
Yeah.
And so, so you'll continue to see that. I mean, we want to make sure that we're not trying to do, giant, ungodly things necessarily with the platform, but we want to make sure that whenever a customer ends up buying something from us or starting to ask us questions, that we're already always going to be for them and make sure that they get something on the other end of that purchase. So, so that's what you'll see.
Good. Yeah, I think that's crucial because, I always think that although Druid is a technology platform that is enabling change for businesses, if they don't succeed, then it can reflect badly on Druid, even if the whole thing was completely mismanaged on their side and all that kind of stuff. It's very easy for that person just to blame the technology. So
Yeah, I 100% agree. There's a term that I've been using internally around sort of like making the customer the hero for their organization or the business.
yeah,
And that doesn't mean like blaming the customer because they did something,
yeah,
right? I mean, you can't, there's no way for you to be able to make the customer a hero if that's the case. And so ultimately, we got to make sure that we work with them to make sure that they win.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I have a newsletter on Substack called the AI Ultimatum,
Hmm.
and I'm gonna try and end these podcasts with a little thing for that newsletter, which is if you were to say what is the biggest AI ultimatum facing businesses today, what would it be?
The biggest ultimatum that businesses are facing today in terms of utilization of AI.
Yeah, something that so the concept is that essentially we are at a place now where it is no longer a choice. It is required for businesses to be prosperous and healthy and thrive in the future. But
Yeah.
that's AI generally, AI the big category. So, so I think that businesses have got this ultimatum facing
Yeah.
them, which is we do something now or we're blockbuster.
Yeah. Yeah.
But underneath that, it takes a lot to get it right. So, what
It
are some of the
does.
things that are required that you have to do to get it right? What's the ultimatum that you're facing now? Do it, or it will be tough for you to survive or to thrive.
I think again we kind of touched around the edges on it, Kane, is like just get started and get yourself educated. Like more so than anything else. And know that it's changing literally at like, breakneck speed, at the moment. I'm one of those people that go out and say it's changing way faster than you would think. And it's changing way faster than I would have ever imagined right now. Like it is so fast, right? Like you got Lovable being able to create products and websites for you in like 15 minutes, right? That would take you, I don't know, a year and a half for you to be able to put together. And then there was a YouTube video of a developer that used Replit to recreate the Lovable product. That's how fast it's moving. That's how fast it's moving. And so, I would say, just get involved. Just get involved. I know a lot of people have a bit of fear around it, Kane. And even though it's like taking a final exam, right? It's
Yeah,
like, it's coming, but you don't want, you're kind of scared. You don't want to study for it. Like we're getting pretty close to final exam time now. And so, and what I think people will find is that it is extremely liberating once you start playing around with it. Just because of how powerful the technology is, there's so many places where it's going to help you as a person. And so, I would say certainly just get involved, get educated. Final exam time is coming. It is like the biggest thing that I will say that businesses need to do. If I can add an extra credit here, Kane,
yeah.
for the market. Okay, this is more for the AI market and people that are involved. We're gonna find out in the next few years if this truly is the internet or if this is the next iteration of what's happening in cloud. You get what I mean?
How do
So
you mean?
this is not this entire revolution, it's just an evolution.
Right.
Like which one of these things are. I think there is absolute possibility for this to be a complete revolution, just this giant additive thing to humanity and what's happening in the economy. Like it's got that possibility. And so, my biggest thing to the general kind of industry is how do we find ways for everyone to get together to find out what those areas are and make sure that those areas succeed? Because the other piece here is if you're at the school of this stuff is just going to take your jobs, not necessarily make you way more powerful, but it's just going to replace you, then I don't know how from an economics perspective, this is an additive.
Mm,
It's a replacement. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And so in things like that, there's not that much additional growth that's going to come. It's certainly not going to be the internet if that's the case. And there is a huge possibility here in all facets of where AI can touch as an industry that we can help with. And so my ask, not for existing customers, but for the folks that are involved in the AI space is like, how do we identify and cultivate those things as well? Would be my big challenge for just the industry at wide.
yeah. That's a very good observation. That I'd never thought about AI being a replacement technology. I have thought about it being a replacement technology, but I hadn't thought about that from an economic standpoint, which is if it does just replace people, then it's not growth.
It's not growth. It's just replacing one for the other, right? And
Mm,
so but it doesn't have to be that. There's so much potential here. There's so much potential here. I mean, our Symbiosis tag item is like human-centric AI, which sounds almost too robotic for me. I'm trying to change that. Much more like it's like AI technology that really unlocks the true potential of a person.
yeah,
And so it's like, how do we make it that second piece, right? How do we make it that and not just a replacement? I think is a challenge worth taking on, I think, for the industry. It's like $1 trillion question in
yeah.
really like where those things fit. I think about it in terms of like operating systems and primitives. I'm like a product and engineer at heart, right? And so
Mm,
if at one point Windows and Linux was the operating system, right? And then once you went to containers and microservices, all of a sudden it's like Docker and CoreOS and Kubernetes is sort of like what you end up with. OpenShift if you're a Red Hat person. Um, and so like a lot of the questions that I'm asking myself is like, what is the primitives now for the AI space?
mm,
And then if you were to pick an operating system for how this stuff works, what would be the operating system? What's the core thing that you would actually put everything together? And
mm.
I really think it really is like that, almost like that orchestration layer.
Yeah, I agree.
And
Yeah,
a lot of people are pointing towards it right now. But it's just having been in it for a bit, it's incredibly difficult to build. It's
yeah,
easy to say. It's boxes that kind of link into each other, but each box is like 18 months worth of work and
yeah.
the integrations take years for you to go do. And so, but it'll be super intriguing to see where we go from here. There is a presentation that I'm going to push the team to do as a target at. Do you know what the AI Engineer World Fair? Have you heard of that before?
No, don't think so.
Okay, so it's like 5,000 AI engineers attend.
Right.
The community is, I think it's 1 million engineers. The
Wow.
community,
Oh my
yeah,
God.
and they do it once a year. And this coming year, it's going to be in San Francisco, and it's in end of June, beginning of July,
Hmm.
is when it's at. And so I'm trying to get the team to, that this whole concept of the different systems put together with not just us, but other kind of contemporary people that are in the space
Mm,
to see if there's a presentation that we can do together. Like
that'd
people
be
that are in
cool.
security, that might buy into it, or
Yeah,
Anaconda is certainly one of them that I'm trying to bring in
yeah.
to have that
That'd
discussion.
be
So
really cool. Yeah.
it'll be super interesting.
Yeah, I think I mean, this space is ripe for research and stuff like that, isn't it? To figure out kind of like how you bring all that stuff together. Because I think that
Exactly.
orchestra. In fact, I wrote about this in that Substack I was talking about at some point, which was that you've got like two layers as I see it, which is the orchestration layer at the company level, which is
Yep.
your clients. How do they have this orchestration layer that orchestrates their business systems, their workflows, and customer conversations? But then at the same time, you then also need some kind of orchestration layer perhaps above that, which is the
Yep.
ChatGPT connection and stuff like that. To then, when ChatGPT goes to Walmart's website, you don't want it to go onto Walmart's website and kick around. You want it to use Druid. So it's like there needs to be some sort of like business level orchestration,
Yeah.
as well as kind of like horizontal, like inner business orchestration, if that makes sense. I don't know. I explained it better in the article, but it's almost like
It
there's two
does.
layers. Yeah.
It does. And what's funny is I would say, and this is how fast things are moving. Things that were in debate that are no longer in debate ends up bringing new things to debate. I
Yeah.
would say
Yeah.
the genesis for that discussion originally was this like 4 years ago. Okay,
Mm.
now. So even before, I think it was like just when GPT-3 was like getting ready to launch. You know how there was like this build up and then all of a sudden it was available and people were losing their minds. It's going to
Yeah.
replace Google and all that, right? So right as it was coming up to that, as we were looking at the tech, there was one big realization that had happened.
Mm.
For a lot of people that were looking at the demo. So one of them was typically in an enterprise, you have something called systems of record.
Yeah.
Okay? It's the sources of truth in how you run an enterprise. Okay, it's your ERP system, your CRM system, etc. Okay, and it's mostly structured data.
Mm.
It's structured data. Now, when LLMs started to become like make noise and like this is the new way to set context for an enterprise, it was very clear that now the new systems of record was both structured and unstructured data.
Yeah.
Because LLMs, their source of truth is unstructured data.
Yeah.
It's not structured data. And so once you have the whole kind of how systems are put together at the very, very base of the source of truth change like that, almost everything on top of it has to get rebuilt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
And so you got all of this layer of because these things are structured, you have these modeling technologies and and all of a sudden you have the end user up top. What you see more now is that those sets of technologies now collapsing,
Yeah.
right? Because now you can take the data more directly to have value for the end customer. The part that has changed is there's two ways that you can look at that data set. You can go, let's just treat everything unstructured.
Mm.
Meaning all my structured data, I'm going to send it also to OpenAI and they're going to figure stuff out, even if I don't tell them the context, which works to a certain degree. Okay. But then you have no control over what the LLM is making decisions on or how it's telling you what it's telling you. Like there's no way to log that information because it's self-learning and all of that. So either you end up doing that or you end up with the on the other sense, which is let's just treat the structured data like structured data and let's treat the unstructured data with LLMs. If LLMs want to change the structured data, they need to go through
Yeah.
the existing construct. This is the concept of MCP servers.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Right, exactly, right? You're
Yeah.
going through the MCP servers then takes care of the structured information. And so at the time, we didn't know which one's going to win. Is it going to go, oh, this is so easy to implement? And everyone did that. Everyone
Mm.
just threw it into OpenAI. Now we've made the swing back all the way over to the other side. And it's like, no, we should have MCP servers, microservices, and all that. And so now it doesn't like I think we're at a place where it doesn't matter. It's like how do you orchestrate the two together? Like is where most people are now putting their dollars, including us, including traditional RPA companies like UiPath, as well, and same with ServiceNow, and everyone's now trying to get to this orchestration layer. But the part that's going to be harder is again the CI/CD. How do you version this stuff? Like if you haven't built it originally native to the way that the platform works, people are going to find that they're going to have to do a lot of learning over the next 3 to 4 years. So we got
Mm.
minimally on the Druid side a 2 to 3 year head start because we built all of this stuff built in, half of it by accident, to be frank. But that's why we got to continue to push the boundaries on it a little bit. Like let's make sure we integrate with other people's agents, other people's automation capability to almost
Mm.
be that like you said, there's like kind of a second layer of orchestration that needs to happen on top. And so we're kind of going after that. We don't think as much as the Anthropics and the OpenAIs want to do some of that stuff as well. That's not their core on what they're doing. There's a lot of B2C kind of components to their part of the business
Mm.
where they need to continue to fulfill that portion where this isn't as critical, at least of a business for right now. And so we're trying to push the boundaries on it as much as possible to make sure that we continue to put our stakes in the ground,
Yeah.
at least
Absolutely.
that orchestration layer.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if it will become a huge priority for OpenAI. I know they've released like the agents platform and stuff like that, which is it doesn't look incredibly good from my eyes.
No,
But I think
no.
what you were saying there in terms of Druid's kind of pedigree, some of it was done by accident. I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think that what's happening is that companies are realizing that you can't use LLMs from front to back for everything, and that you have to have some determinism somewhere, whether that's from a rule following process or from an integration and data usage standpoint. Like there has to be some determinism somewhere. So,
Yeah, 100%. Like it's like, but again, it's where I say it's accidental, maybe a little bit is, um, it. No, I mean, all the decisions were made, with the information that's at hand. It was just like that portion. Although King, you might have seen it, like, hey, look, this is inevitable.
mm,
I agree with you. I think it was going to be inevitable. Even as early as November of last year, when I was looking at this space, it was not an inevitability.
interesting.
Okay. So I'll give you an idea, and this is like I have to be very careful because of sort of the just my technical background a little bit, but to give you an idea of how you could drive additional accuracy as an example. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of using one LLM, if you actually use, instead of using deterministic technologies, even,
Mm-hmm.
okay, let's say I'm a purist, I'm only going to use LLMs. If I take different LLMs, right, and
Mm-hmm.
I tune them differently, and I have the LLMs fight against each other on accuracy, you can actually get a super accurate result,
Right.
right? And so, like the multi agent, multi LLM model does work. The math that I found when we were not at Druid but at Sumo when we did it this way was that the point of diminishing return is around 7 agents.
Mm.
So once you get above that, the amount of tokens that you're going to utilize is not worth it anymore for that little 1 to 2% that you might get for adding an additional LLM. And so you can still get to super, again, I don't want to say it's the technology is non-deterministic, so I can't say it's
Yeah.
deterministic, but it's like, it's pretty good, like 95, 96, 97%. It's more than what a person would be able to do,
Mm.
even if they were to do it manually. And so you can get there. The problem becomes when you do that, you still have no way to log how it's being
Yeah.
deterministic,
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
right? And so there is a control and security portion that if we want to contain a upkeep on SOC 2 and HIPAA and all of these things, ISO
Yeah.
certification 27001, that you just can't get there unless you have these other steps available. Again, if you need it, then you have to take a, like you said, a deterministic plus non-deterministic approach to how you're going to get to those answers.
Yeah.
So it's much more certain now. I think even as of November, I can tell you, like when I was having all the side discussions, like it was not a certainty thing.
Mm.
Um, and MCP came out like this year, right? MCP
Yeah. Something like
servers
that.
were
Yeah.
like, it seems like forever ago,
Yeah.
actually. But it was like, you know what I mean? Like, because that's how fast it's moving.
Yeah.
But that was this year, King. Like, it wasn't like 2 years ago. They're like, hey, you know what? We should have an MCP server that does this. It's like, no, no, we had tools, we had rags, no MCP servers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, yeah. Where's it gonna go? Where's it gonna be in 12 months' time? Who knows?
I have an inkling of how people are going to, uh, corner each part
Mm-hmm.
of it. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. There is the biggest question for me is, do you know who Fiji is? Who she is? So there's a lady named Fiji. She
Nice.
used to be the CEO of Instacart.
Okay.
Okay, and less than a year ago, um, and it is less than a year ago. I want to say like 7 or 8 months ago.
Yeah.
She actually left Instacart to run the application division for OpenAI.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you
Wow.
take a step back, essentially what she is saying is the opportunity to be like the number two person at OpenAI running applications is way bigger than running Instacart, the company that she took public.
Wow.
Wow,
Yeah.
right? And so it's like, what do they think an application is going to look like?
Yeah.
Right? So like they must have at least an inkling of what that next iteration of those things are. Right now, like as I contemplate, I mean, it's a secret sauce stuff. They're not going to tell you what that is, right? I can
Mm.
call her and she'd be like, hey, yeah, I'm not going to quite trust what she's going to tell me, right? But talking with customers, at least start to contemplate what it looks like, feels like, sounds like, smells like, tastes like.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't name the thing right now.
Yeah.
But I know what it sort of is, partly because of what a customer journey looks like right now, even when they use our technology.
Mm.
Okay, so an example would be, let's say we are a front end for an ERP system. Let's use Salesforce,
Mm-hmm.
okay, because I've been using that example. Eventually, when we can answer all the questions on Salesforce, they ask you to do Salesforce stuff. Like,
Yeah.
why can't you just hold all my ear? Why am I paying for Salesforce?
Yeah.
Why can't you be the ERP for me?
Mm-hmm.
So, and we're seeing similar things in CRM systems, even RPA. Like I would
Yeah.
say, like we're starting to have these inclinations. I don't want the team, again, the God box piece. I don't want the team to, continue to go down that road. But it's like you can kind of see it happening. Like, where is the boundary condition?
Mm.
Like it becomes very, very, it becomes blurry. Knowledge base. If I know where all your documentation is, Okay. And I'm answering questions and I'm updating the documents for you. It's inevitable that the customer will come to me and say, why don't you just host the documents?
Yeah.
Why am I even holding this stuff? I'm not even updating it anymore. You're the one updating it through chat. I'd rather go do something else.
Hmm.
And so there is this like weird, really weird thing happening on the app side um, that I still don't have a quite like a named thing for. Satya Nadella talks about it all the time,
He does. Yeah.
right? You know
Mm.
what I mean? He's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
if the value of, so if applications are eating the world and the value of the app goes into the LLM, what is the app
Yeah.
ultimately? And I think OpenAI at least has a guess on what that could be. Otherwise, they wouldn't hire somebody such and be able to convince her to come and run that department.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I think everything you've alluded to is exactly along the lines of what Satya Nadella talks about, isn't it? Which is that like the whole idea of a CRM is basically just a database. You know, it's more
It is.
complicated than that, but it's basically what it is.
Yes. It's the
And
squishing. It's the
yeah,
squishing of the structure stuff and all this middle stuff and then value. It's like, okay, well, the LLMs allow you to like then now smash the value
yeah,
together.
yeah.
So yeah, it's like it's super interesting. I'm hoping it's more than chat and agent.
I hope so as well. Yeah, I think the thing is that like, you know, you saw this as well with like, I've often drawn the parallel with Druid is probably a good example. I've often used Druid competitors when I've been talking about it, but like there's also a similar kind of conversation about, you know, if Druid is the front door to a business. So when someone goes onto a website, they use Druid. They call a contact
Yeah.
center, it hits Druid. Then Druid's the front end, which means that everything behind it is only there to service Druid, which means that when someone
Yes.
makes a phone call, does it matter what call center you have? That could quite simply be an extension of the Druid platform. Now we're a contact center that just handles the stuff that goes on when the AI agent fails. Same thing as a CRM. It's all going through this platform. The only thing you need a CRM for is just to store the outcome.
I
So yeah,
I'm afraid that is true. So and this is the where do you put the efforts and because there's
yeah,
so many use cases. Like I come out of a CAP discussion where I'm just like my list of stuff to do is like 1,000 pages long. But it's exciting to think about in terms of like all the different roads that you can go down. But it feels that part for me feels more inevitable.
mm,
That part, right? Just because of where the value is and where the interactions happen. But with all of that said, because if it was chat and agent, we're still golden, like as a
yeah,
company. The part that I more as a industry point of view is like, I'm hoping there is more. I'm
mm,
hoping the app is more than that down the road. And again, I don't think Satya knows either. I don't
mm,
think like he's at a place like when I'm listening to him is like it's kind of similar. It's like I know what it looks like and tastes like and but it's not like we can't name what it exactly
yeah,
it is. But if there is no additional, again, my fear is sort of what I landed on is like, how do you then add more value
mm,
instead of a replacement value,
mm.
right? And so that's sort of my concern right now. And again, in 12 months, Kane, I'm going to have an answer for you. So what I think is, if it's around this whole human-centric AI component, right, or like really unleashing, the personal capability of every human being, like there is something here where the system needs to allow you to go do something way more than what you had anticipated to do.
Mm.
So, like as a business application in this context, what would that look like? And so like that is you get what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like it's more than giving you insight. It's more than taking action for you. It's also being able to unleash some additional things that only you could go do. And
mm,
so there is a piece of this that is around, again, the concept that we called it was systems of insight. It was like
yeah,
one of the 6 papers that we wrote together, where I think about it, I'm like, there is something to that here.
yeah,
Like what, and if it doesn't do that, my fear here is like, if it doesn't do that, it becomes mostly a replacement technology.
yeah,
I would say it absolutely will do it, whether we write about it and enable it or if somebody else does it. I do think that it's something that will occur.
hmm,
It's just like, how do we get from where we are right now to be able to name what that thing is?
yeah,
And it is, I'm getting pretty close to being able to,
Yeah, that's
in a
very
paper,
interesting.
describe what it is.
Yeah, that's very interesting. It's almost like a system of creation, isn't it? Because you've got the
It is. It
ideation
is.
plus the
Yeah.
creation. And from a business point of view, I think there will be some replacement, which is that some people just want to know where their order is, but
Absolutely.
some people
Absolutely
don't
it
know
will.
what they need. Some
Yeah,
people are so
absolutely. So
ambiguous that they don't understand what they need, and therefore that's where it opens the door to that type of use case, isn't it?
yeah, but it's almost like the requirements that come in too, Kane, is like we deploy a use case for a customer. They come back and they're like, we want these 15 different things.
Mm.
It's not like we told them these are the 15 different things that you can do with the technology. It's them coming to the realization these are additional 15 things I can add value for.
Yeah,
Right? So it is like instead of them doing that, is there some kind of insight that we can provide to them to go, these
yeah,
are 15 additional things that you can do
yeah.
looking at your environment.
That's very
And so
good.
like
Yeah,
there is a new, you know what I mean? There's a
yeah.
new thing that we can help customers do. Again, this is why I'm pushing on one end to go, how do we get that first value realized for a customer as soon as possible? And then all of this other stuff opens up for them and then be able to give them additional capabilities around it. So there is something to that on if I was looking at an ERP system, just being very basic, or an HRIS system, that eventually the front end becomes this kind of like chat and agentic capability. What in it can we add so that that HR person then also understands that there's all of this other possibility that they can now utilize the technology for?
Mm.
And so like how do we surface that for them is something that I'm constantly thinking through right now. This is the authoring agent. When I talk to you about like just basic stuff around authoring agents, is
Yeah,
like
yeah,
there's something there. Like you know what I mean? In the
yeah,
author, like here's other things that we can do for you. What do you think? Do you
yeah,
want to go help, along with the agent create these additional value for your HR department, your finance
yeah,
department, et cetera?
yeah.
So I think we'll be much more clear about it again, 12, like if you were to ask me, like, what do we want to get nailed down 12 months from now, I think it'll be a little bit more clear on what that looks like as an
Mm.
interface.
Very much so. Very much so. Absolutely agree. Joe, thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure. Really, really enlightening conversation. I really, really enjoyed it. For those people who are wanting to learn more, druidai.com. We'll put the links in the show notes and stuff like that. And yeah, maybe we can do this again in like 12 months or so when we can see whether these predictions have come to light.
Oh, I can't wait. There's a lot of stuff that we're working on right now that I think people are going to find super fascinating 12 months from now. So I would love to do a follow up. That'd be great.
Nice one. Appreciate it, Joe. Thank you so much. And thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you again on the next one. Thanks now. Bye.